hatred toward God.
Where are we starting at? I'm sorry.
Say what?
Where are we starting at?
Yeah, 12:3 in Revelation 12:3. But he's engaged in a long war of hatred toward God and people. But there is a point in the future when God will bring this war to an end. And as we get to this chapter, which is chapter 13, and continue to push through, we're going to see we're going to see Satan throwing everything at at people and at God. And his plan. Nice catch. Okay. So at this point in our study, John writes a detailed view of Satan's evil plan to raise up two significant future world leaders, and that's where we are. So we're going to I want to look at this verse first, and then we'll come back to it in just a minute. So what does Revelation 12:3 say?
Then another sign appeared in heaven. There was a great fiery red dragon having 7 heads and 10 horns, and on its heads were 7 crowns.
Okay, I went to this verse because of the details attached to who is the great red dragon. Yeah, and we know that because when we read through a little bit farther, he's going to tell us that. Okay, so how is Satan, what is the description that we're given of Satan in these verses, or this verse?
7 heads and 10 horns, and on his heads were 7 diadems, or crowns.
And on his heads he had 7 crowns. Okay, we'll come back to that in just a minute. Okay, so turn with me now to Revelation 13:1. I want to do kind of an overview of these two future world leaders, and then we're going to come back and dig through the details, okay? So we're going to be in chapter 13 at least probably 3 weeks, which will put us right up against spring break. So anyway, so let's read Revelation 13:1, and we'll look at these details.
Then I stood on the sand of the sea, and I saw a beast rising up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and on his horns 10 crowns, and on his head a blasphemous name.
Okay, so what does he describe?
A beast,
A beast.
7 heads and 10 horns.
Okay. And this beast has 7 heads and 10 horns.
With 10 crowns on the heads.
Okay, and 10
Or,
crowns.
no, I'm sorry, on the horns.
10 crowns on the horns. Okay.
Having 10 horns and 7 heads.
Yep.
Okay,
That's what we got.
okay.
Okay, so we're going to talk about this and this here in just a second, and that's why we read that. We've looked at chapter 12 multiple times for various reasons, but now we're looking at it because of this description and this description. Okay. All right. So let's get the details of 13:2. Would somebody read that?
Says the beast I saw resembled a leopard, but had feet like those of a bear and a mouth like that of a lion. The dragon gave the beast his power and his throne and great authority.
Okay, so he further describes this same beast, and what is the further description that we get?
Leopard,
Leopard,
Feet of a bear,
bear,
mouth of a lion,
lion,
and he got power and his throne and authority from Satan.
okay, power, throne, and authority from Satan. Okay. So now we're going to skip because we're going to come back and pick this up. We're just doing a big picture. This is who this chapter's about. Yes, sir.
I got a question about the mouth. It says it had a mouth, but he had 7 heads.
So, in the mouth, mouth like that of a lion. Is that way you're?
Yeah, it just says a mouth like that of a lion, but yet he had 7 heads. So where's the mouth? I mean, is does that relate to all 7 heads?
Well-
Or,
Not necessarily, but we're gonna look at how this relates to Daniel, which is gonna help us in just a
Okay.
minute, okay? But it also is given, so there's a big picture look of these mean something.
Mhm.
And then the mouth also means something. And so, as we keep going, I think it will become more obvious, but that's a good question. So let's look at we'll come back, and if we don't, then bring it up again. Revelation 13, 11 and 12. This is an introduction to another personality. Okay, let's read those 2 verses.
Then I saw another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had two horns like a lamb, and spoke like a dragon. And he exercises all the authority of the first beast in his presence, and causes the earth and those who dwell in it to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed.
Okay, so what do we find out about this another beast?
2 horns like a lamb, spoke like a dragon. Had the same authority as the first beast.
Well, he exercises the first beast's authority.
So he, in the presence of the beast, and what does it say about that? In the presence of the beast, what does he do?
Make the earth worship.
Exercises all the authority of the first beast.
Okay, exercises authority. And what did you say, Dawn?
I was just, he made the earth
Oh,
worship the first beast.
okay, so worship first beast. So just by looking at this, what can we conclude? Oops, I can't. That's an asterisk. Anyway, just looking at this. Well, before we do that, let's read Revelation 19:20, because we're gonna
Quick
know.
question before we move on. In verse 2, the beast comes out of the sea and this one comes out of the land. Does that make a difference?
Yeah, it does. And those are details we'll get into that we're not gonna, and it really we'll get into that, but it won't be tonight, okay?
Is it
But it's a good question.
Is it 2 different people's perspective, or is it all,
Meaning,
meaning the 2 beasts?
when
No,
you,
they're different entities.
so you have beast and you have another beast. Is that what you're
But the
asking?
first, because 7 heads, 10 horns,
Uh-huh,
and then the 7 heads, 10 horns, 10 crowns.
uh-huh.
So you have Satan beast.
Well,
you
Satan
have
is the 7 heads, 10 horns, and 7 crowns, and
Beast,
then the
yeah.
first beast is 7 heads, 10 horns, and 10 crowns.
And that, hopefully, depending on how far we get, that will make more sense
Yeah.
shortly, okay? And then we have another beast.
The-
And we know that these are, what do we know just by the way he writes about them right here? What do we know about them? Not big picture kind
They're
of.
subservient to Satan.
Okay, that's,
And they get their power from Satan.
yep, Satan gives them their,
Authority.
Yeah.
yes, and we'll dig into that more too.
But it looks like they get smaller as they get mentioned. I mean, like 7 head, 10 horn, 10 crowns. That, to me, that shows there's a lot of authority and respect with that
There's
one.
a superior
Yeah.
relationship.
And then the next one, like leopard bear, it's all like violent and like destructive things. Not
Okay.
necessarily like a kingship. It's more like it's destructive. And the third one, I'm not quite decided on that.
well, the two are the same one, right?
These two.
Yes.
Yeah, those are the same
Yes.
Oh,
one.
okay.
This is a
That's not two
description
different
of
ones.
these
Yeah, but
two,
okay, I
just,
got you.
this was the verse 1 and this is verse 2.
That's right.
Yeah, thank you for
But
clarifying.
then, yeah, it still shows like it describes the physical appearance of it. Like that would be something that would destroy, let's like physically tear something up, like a bear, a
Yeah,
a
you're
leopard.
right.
They get more convoluted as
Yeah.
they go on.
Okay, and it's amazing that God, not amazing that God can do this, but it's amazing for me as a human being reading how much detail is in these descriptions that we'll look at in various places to help us to understand what is going on here, okay? But let's read 1920. We're gonna know who this is because we're told in 1920. This is after Jesus' second coming, and he throws these two characters into the lake of fire, and we're told who this another beast is. What do we find out?
But the beast was captured, and with it the false prophet who had performed the signs on its behalf. With these signs he had deluded those who had received the mark of the beast and worshipped its image. The two of them were thrown alive into the fiery lake of burning sulfur.
Okay, so who is this another beast?
False prophet.
Yeah, there's the false prophet. And it's interesting what you just read, and his role, when we know his name, his identity, what is his role?
To deceive people.
It is to deceive people. There's no question about that.
Isn't it something similar to what John the Baptist was doing for Jesus? Like saying,
Right,
here
yeah.
come, like coming in, here comes the authority.
Oh.
Like making the way for,
That's not a bad analogy, but we saw in what Dawn just read, and what we read back here, we saw that word used in both places, and so worship is key, central to the role of the false prophet. So how would you, looking at that, all of that, knowing who that is, how would you describe the relationship between Satan and the first beast and the false prophet? And we're going to identify the first beast here shortly. How would you?
Well, they're kind of a trinity,
Exactly.
opposite of the Holy Trinity.
Exactly. It's really a false trinity. It's instead of, and so they each have roles, and we would say that his role would be like the boss, God the Father.
Because he wants to be God.
Exactly. And his role would most likely, maybe we can deduce what would this role be?
Holy Spirit.
The Holy Spirit, and so then this would be a substitute for Jesus, which would tell us who he is. Okay?
so yeah, they're describing the unholy trinity.
Yes, an unholy
Satanic
trinity, a false, just whatever, but it's that he doesn't come up with any new ideas. It's just trying to, yeah, it is. It's
He's
a
a
copycat.
In a way,
He's
he's
trying to
a
take
god,
the place
he's just
of-
a small g god.
Yeah, an Antichrist is opposed to or against. And so we see that in their roles and in this leadership role that they're going to have on the whole earth. So so turn with me. Let's see, what else do we do? Oh yeah, I do want to read 3 and 4 of chapter 13. I want to go ahead and read that so we can get it on the table, and if we don't, and hopefully we'll get far enough that we'll be able to finish what that means. If not, we'll pick that up next week.
And I saw one of his heads as if it had been slain, and his fatal wound was healed. And the whole earth was amazed and followed after the beast. And they worshipped the dragon because he gave his authority to the beast. And they worshipped the beast, saying, who is like the beast, and who is able to wage war with him?
Okay, there's a couple of there's one major event that is talked about, which again we will get into. What is the main event of what happens?
The fatal wound being
Yeah,
healed.
there's a fatal wound.
So is that supposed to mirror Jesus being raised from the dead? Is that on their side of it? Is that what they're?
Yes. And we'll dig into that a little bit more too, because there's basically two interpretations of that. So we got a fatal wound healed, and then what else? What's the response to
Worship.
that? Yeah, and who did they worship?
The beast.
The beast. And what's the response to?
Oh, this 4 says they worship the dragon
Yes.
because he gave his authority to
Yes.
the beast.
So this really ties them together and so when we see the 7 heads and 10 horns, we're going to understand what that means here shortly, but we're also going to understand, well, that's because there's this tie between the Antichrist and Satan himself. Okay, so, and the bottom line is worship, and how do people respond to the fact that his fatal wound was healed? How do people respond?
They were amazed.
They were amazed. Okay. So we're gonna take the parts and pieces here, and we're gonna go to the book of Daniel, okay? And I wanna first go to Daniel chapter 2. We aren't gonna be able to read through the entire chapter. We're gonna jump to the prophecy part, but in Daniel chapter 2, Nebuchadnezzar has a dream. And I can't think of turn pages. Nebuchadnezzar has a dream, and in this dream he sees a statue. Again, it's amazing how pictures provide so much information and detail. And so in this statue, there's layers of different what do you call it?
Materials?
Metals.
Yeah.
And so we see that if we would go back and we'd read through all of that chapter. And he doesn't know what his dream means, and so he gets Daniel to come and interpret his dream. What's interesting about his dream is it ties into this. Okay? So let's read Daniel chapter 2, 40 to 44. And Daniel tells him, he goes, in verse 31, he says, Nebuchadnezzar, you are the head of gold. And then he talks about another kingdom after him. And there's a break between each one, and then another one after that. And then he starts with verse 40, and there's another break. So you see the break, as it starts in verse 40, do you see the break there? What does he say?
Fourth kingdom.
Yeah, fourth kingdom. So that's important, and it fits with Revelation and another place in Daniel. We're edging closer to Ed's favorite Bible verse
I can't wait.
in the entire book of the Bible. Okay, so let's read 40 through 44.
Finally, there will be a fourth kingdom, strong as iron. For iron breaks and smashes everything, and as iron breaks things to pieces, so it will crush and break all the others. Just as you saw that the feet and toes were partly of baked clay and partly of iron, so this will be a divided kingdom, yet it will have some of the strength of iron in it, even as you saw iron mixed with clay. As the toes were partly iron and partly clay, so the kingdom will be partly strong and partly brittle. And just as you saw the iron mixed with baked clay, so the people will be a mixture and will not remain united, any more than the iron mixes with clay. In the times of those kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom that will never be destroyed, nor will it be left to another people. It will crush all those kingdoms and bring them to an end, but it will itself endure forever.
Okay, so I want to just briefly, the description of this fourth kingdom, okay? We see some details about that fourth kingdom. What are some of the details that we see?
Partly strong.
Strong as iron.
So we got the strength is iron, and then,
Weakness is clay.
okay, and then it's mixed with clay. And they don't really what?
They don't mix.
Okay. And then look at the end of, look at verse 42, and he's pointing to something on this statue. What is he pointing to?
Toes.
The toes.
Yeah, the feet and the toes. He's zeroing in on that. And how many toes do most people have?
10.
Are you sure?
8
Well, let
and
me
2
take my
hinges.
shoes off and
Okay,
count.
okay. So, 10, okay? And then he goes on, and what does he say in verse 44?
In the days of these kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed, and the kingdom shall not be left to other people. It shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever.
Okay, so in the days of these kings, Now he's not talking about toes anymore, he's not talking about feet anymore. He is telling us what these toes represent. He's talking about kings. And he's told us there's 10 of them. And he's told us some of the characteristics of those 10 kings. And then he tells us an event that takes place during that time frame. What is the event?
King that's
Yeah.
gonna come and destroy the others.
Yeah, God's eternal kingdom. Okay, so now we're gonna jump to chapter 7, Daniel chapter 7. Uh-oh, Ed,
Are we getting close?
we're getting really close. And if I didn't write it down, we'll do it just for you.
Okay. Let me get that going. Okay.
So basically, those kingdoms, those kings or 10 kingdoms will destroy themselves because they're not competent. They're not.
Well, we are finding out
Right.
that they're linked together, but there's something about their tie to each other that doesn't,
They don't mix.
yeah, they don't mix. Okay? That's what we're seeing. Okay? Now we're going to chapter 7, and we're going to look at, again, he's talking about 4 kingdoms. Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
He's talking about 4 kingdoms, and we're going to look at the first one. Verse 3? No. Is it 3?
Yeah.
3 to 6.
Okay, 3 to 6. Let's read that, please.
And 4 great beasts were coming up from the sea, different from one another. The first one was like a lion and had the wings of an eagle. I kept looking until its wings were plucked, and it was lifted up from the ground and made to stand on 2 feet like a man. A human mind also was given to it. And behold, another beast, a second one, resembling a bear, and it was raised up on one side, and 3 ribs were in its mouth between its teeth. And thus they say to it, Arise, devour much meat. And after this I kept looking, and behold, another one, like a leopard, which had on its back 4 wings of a bird, and the beast also had 4 heads, and dominion was given to it.
Okay, I'm keeping Ed in suspense. That's why we stopped right there. Okay? So we have how many? Okay, so if we would read on, we would find out in verse 7 there is what? He's going to describe, and we're going to look at that in just a minute. He's going to describe what?
Another beast.
The 4th beast.
Okay, so we've got, if we looked at the statue, we looked briefly at those verses, how many kingdoms were on that statue? 4. But the focus was on where? In the statue.
The toes.
The feet and the toes. Okay. So now in chapter 7, he's going and he's going to describe the same kingdoms in a different way in this chapter. Okay? So the very first, so this is chapter Daniel 2, and this is Daniel. It'd be nice if I left some room, but I didn't. Daniel 7. What do we find out? What's the first kingdom? How is it described? We don't need all the details, but just kind of an overview, big picture. What is the description?
The lion with eagle's
Lion,
wings.
eagle's wings.
Lion. Okay? And we would, if we looked at that, we would find out when he says you are the head of gold, those details that apply to the lion applied to Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar. Okay? Then the number 2 kingdom is
Bear.
okay? And the number 3 kingdom is
Leopard.
leopard. And then there's a 4th kingdom, which we're going to look at in just a second. Okay, when you see that, what is that? What do you see here?
Leopard, bear.
And a lion.
Yep.
Resembles the first beast.
Yeah, and what's the difference?
They each have 1 head.
Okay,
They have one.
Well, it's 3 different kingdoms.
it is 3 different kingdoms, but what's the difference?
The order which they're talked about? I don't know.
What did you say?
The order they're talked about?
Yes, the order that they're talking about. What is different about the order?
Leopard, bear, lion,
Lions,
it's
tigers, and
reversed.
bears.
It's reversed. Why is it reversed?
Because it's going in, not order.
That's how it was written.
Yes,
That
you're
was
right.
written. I was thinking about how Jared would say that.
Well, you didn't think
I
fast
didn't,
enough.
I didn't think fast
Yeah.
enough. Obviously.
So when Daniel was writing in
WWJS.
You know,
Jared's like,
5 something.
He was forward looking, and when you're the
There you go.
the other one is reverse looking.
In John's day, when he is writing this down, in John's day, where is it? Oh, right here. He's looking back. In Daniel's day, he's looking forward. And so they are reversed.
One prophetic, one historical, sort of. Well, it's more of a record.
But there is a tie between this beast and these. Okay? And we'll look at that here in just a second. Okay? If we get there, we're close. Okay. Ed, I will be disappointed if you didn't read the next 2 verses.
I don't know where we are.
Daniel
Oh,
7.
come on.
You have it marked, underlined. You have it hung up in your house.
He's probably got a tattoo somewhere.
He probably does.
7 and 8?
Please.
Okay. After that, in my vision, you're gonna have to bear with me because I'll probably start laughing
You have to
now.
read it
It's
right.
okay.
After that, in my vision at night, I looked, and there before me was a 4th beast, terrifying and frightening and very powerful. It had large iron teeth, and it crushed and devoured its victims and trampled underfoot whatever was left. It was different from the former beast, and it had 10 horns. While I was thinking about the horns, there before me was another horn, a little one, which came up among them, and the 3 of the first horns were uprooted before it. This horn had eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth that spoke boastfully.
Okay.
Sorry.
You
It's
did
all- I
good.
couldn't hardly hold
You
it
did
together.
Okay. So in this 4th kingdom, what's different about the way the 4th kingdom is described as opposed to the other 3?
There's not an animal reference.
There's not an animal reference.
Right.
This iron teeth.
Yeah, iron teeth, and it crushes, and so there's nothing to compare it to as far as an animal is concerned. Okay? Then he zeroes in on what? Oh, how does he describe this, and what does he zero in on?
The horns.
Yeah, again, there's 10 horns. Okay? And he goes ahead and he addresses some changes in those 10 horns. What are the changes that he sees?
There was a little one.
Small one,
Yeah.
the small one comes up and uproots 3.
Okay, so we're seeing changes in leadership in these kingdoms, and this one rises after these are there. Okay?
Is that Rome?
Yes. Okay, and so if you look at verse 15, I don't have these written down, but I think it's important.
So the 3, I guess the 3 horns that were usurped by the one horn, would that be the triumvirate being usurped by Julius Caesar, or?
No. But there is, because again, we're looking at in relationship to future, okay? Because he says there's another horn, and we're looking at the 10, and we're looking at the 10,
Okay.
and we're looking at the 10, and we're looking at the 10, and what we're seeing is a change in this, because we know on the heels of this 10, what do we know happens? In the days of those kings, what happens?
Christ
sets up his
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we have to take those 10 kings and we have to put it into the future when Jesus returns, because somehow they play into that future, okay? And we're going to see, that's what I want to jump to in chapter 7 that I don't have written down. I think it's important for us to do. So look at Daniel's response, first of all, in seeing these animals. How does he respond in verse 15? And if you see the word, you can just throw it out there, you don't have to read.
Troubled.
Yeah, mine says distressed. This really bothered him. Okay, so then there was somebody that he could go ask, and so then that person he asked gives him basically a 2-sentence answer to his question, okay? And the answer is, what does he tell them? So that we aren't guessing, he tells them, what is he, in verse 17, what does he tell them?
The great beasts, which are 4 in number, are 4 kings who will arise from the earth.
Okay? And then he goes on, his summary is, these are 4 kingdoms, 4 world kingdoms, we don't have to guess, we know what they are. And then he says in verse 18, what does he say?
The saints of the Most High will receive the kingdom and possess the kingdom forever.
Okay, so where does that relate to what we saw in chapter 2?
God's kingdom.
Yes. He is saying the same thing here. Those 4 kingdoms, if we looked at every detail, we could parallel them to 2 kingdoms that we're going to talk about here in just a minute. But he's saying there are 4 kingdoms, and in that 4th kingdom, there's an event, a major event, the major event, which is Jesus' return and setting up an eternal kingdom. Both of those, chapter 2, here in chapter 7, we're getting that same detail. Okay, look at where his focus was in verse 19. What was his focus?
4th beast.
Yeah. He wanted to know the exact meaning of the 4th beast. And he goes on to describe it, just like he did in verse 8, okay? And he wanted to know what was else specifically in verse 20. What did he want to know?
About the 10 horns.
Yep, and
The other one.
The little mouthy horn.
the little mouthy horn.
Little
Yep.
mouthy horn.
That's what he wanted to specifically know about. And the associates. So that tells us these rulers, these kings, are around at the same time because they're described as associates. Okay? All right. So then we get another detail that he's waging war. The horn, the mouthy horn, is waging war with the saints. Okay? Look at verse 23, and he's getting another part of his answer. What is he getting in verse 23?
4th kingdom will be different than the others.
Okay, and then verse 24. What does he tell us about the 10 horns?
King.
Okay,
And another shall rise after them.
okay, and then look at the time frame, and the mouthy horn is going to do what? In verse 25.
Speak pompous words against the Most High.
And how long will he do that?
3.5.
As long as God lets them.
3.5 years.
Yep, 3.5 years, okay? And again, all these details are important because they help us to understand that what we're looking at here is correct, okay? So, and then in verse 27, again, he comes back and he talks about what? After talking about the 10 horns and the little mouthy horn, what does he say in verse 27 is the event that will take place?
God's everlasting kingdom.
Yes, again, God's everlasting kingdom. So we know from what Daniel sees here and what Daniel sees here that this is kingdoms, kings, in the days of those kings, the God of heaven is going to set up an eternal kingdom. So we know that this is future yet in our time. And this is events that will take place before the second coming of Jesus. And we know how long the little mouthy horn is going to have his way. And how long is that?
3.5 years.
3.5 years. Okay? So let's run. This is future for us. We're going to turn to Revelation 17:3. And actually in chapter 17, he's giving us some details that fit with what we're talking about, okay? We're not gonna look at all of it, we're not trying to understand all of it, but we're giving some details here. So, look, let's read verse 3.
Says, then the angel carried me away in the spirit into a wilderness. There I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast, and that was covered with blasphemous names, and had 7 heads and 10 horns.
Okay, so who's that beast? And we'll find out who the woman is when we get to that chapter. But who's the beast? How's it described?
7 heads, 10 horns.
7 heads and 10 horns. Okay? And then he's going to tell us some more information. So we're going to read verse 7.
But the angel said to me, why did you marvel? I will tell you the mystery of the woman and of the beast that carries her, which has the 7 heads and 10 horns.
Okay? So we see more, again, we repeatedly see that description in Daniel, well, not the 7 heads. We don't see that, but he's going to explain that here in chapter 17 of Revelation. Okay? But we can see the tie between Satan and the Antichrist. Okay? Let's look at 10 through 13. And this will make sense here in just a minute. Okay?
5 have fallen, 1 is, the other has not yet come.
Okay, we should jump up. Here, we should jump up one more verse.
9.
Yeah, it makes more sense that way.
This calls for a mind that has wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman is seated. They are also 7 kings. 5 have fallen, 1 is, the other has not yet come. And when he comes, he must remain for only a little while. The beast that was and is not, is itself an 8th king, but it belongs to the 7 and is going to destruction. The 10 horns you saw are 10 kings who have not yet received a kingdom, but they will receive authority as kings with the beast for 1 hour. These have one purpose, and they give their power and authority to the beast.
Okay, that was a story problem. And I've never been good at math. I'm just saying. But we're going to dissect this story problem and see, and then we're going to understand the 10 horns. It's going to reinforce how we're looking at it, and we're also going to understand the 7 heads. Okay? So, let's do the easy part. What are we told about the 10 horns?
5 have fallen.
Okay, the 10 horns.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. What are we told about the 10 horns?
There are 10 kings.
Yep. And that is exactly the same thing that we're told in Daniel. Okay? So again, the Bible doesn't have all of the information about an event in the same place. And also because this is prophecy, this is 700 years before John wrote. And only God could say, this is what is going to happen. And so he is telling us at the end, there are going to be 10 kings. And those 10 kings, he tells us in chapter 7, what Teresa read, what do we find out is the purpose of those 10 kings?
Give their power and authority to the beast.
Yep. Their whole goal, power and authority to the beast. So we have a satanically energized leadership, and now we have kings that are inspired, that are also giving their power, their authority. So how would you describe this person during that time, this time frame?
The Antichrist?
It is the Antichrist, and how would you describe him?
Most powerful.
Extremely powerful.
But it's like the 10 kings, power came from him anyway, so it's like, or did it come?
Or they're just as corrupt. Or
Well, there's a tie between them because he tells us in Daniel that they are associates. So there is some sort of political tie, but now we see what that political tie is. There is some kind of rearranging too, because he's going to take over 3 of them. And so he's going to subdue 3 of them. So it's not static. There's wars involved here, and they're going to end up with, start with 10, he's taken over 3, now there's 8. Somehow, and their whole purpose is to do this, to give their, and how that structure looks like on the earth, we don't really know. But we do know that there is some sort of a 10 kingdom alliance. Doesn't really all work, because remember what Daniel wrote here, some are strong, some are weak, but that exists. And their whole point of existing is to do what? We said it here.
Give the power to the beast.
Yes.
So is that where people, or is that where the idea comes from with the one world unity?
That's part of it. It's part of it. But chapter 13 will also explain, we won't get to that tonight, but it'll actually explain more of that. But it is part of it, because you've got this authority structure, and it's not totally defined for us here, but again, when we get into chapter 13, we'll see it more.
I was just thinking, I mean, if you got 10 kings and they're giving all their power and authority to one person, and that means that one person is now the only person that
Has power and
Yeah,
authority.
exactly. Exactly. And that's the right image. Okay, so now we want to talk about who are the 7 heads. Okay? He tells us what they are, right? What does he tell us in our little story problem? What does he tell us? What verse is that?
7 mountains on which the woman sits.
Okay, and then he tells us what those 7 mountains are.
They are 7 kings.
Okay, so we know this list is kings. Okay?
5 have fallen.
Okay, and okay, so let's talk about that first, okay? Saying at this point, what is this point? 5 have fallen. What's this point?
3.5 years.
That's a good guess. It's wrong.
So that
Jesus.
is.
That's wrong too.
The first guy.
Is that when
No, is it when,
Israel was destroyed? Or
Nice.
Jerusalem?
All good ideas, but who's writing?
Jenna.
Not true.
John's writing.
Who's writing?
John.
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 So when John says 5 have fallen, that means what?
in the past.
Before.
This is history. Okay? All right? And so he says 5 kings have fallen. The first one does not match Daniel, but these 4 do. And so he's pointing to world kingdoms. Okay? The very first world kingdom. Huh?
Babylon.
Yeah, the first 2. I lied. No. Okay. The first 2 world kingdoms.
Babylon and Greece.
Babylon.
Rome.
Rome. No.
No, Rome was last.
Who conquered the northern kingdom of Israel?
Egypt.
That was the second.
Oh.
But that's not who conquered.
Palestine.
Assyria.
How do you spell it?
ASSY.
Okay. So these are everyone on this list are noted historical. They ruled the known world. Okay? Everyone on this list. So Assyria did, Egypt did, and then who? Huh?
Persia.
Romans,
Babylon.
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 I'm just
Who
gonna
conquers Babylon?
saying names till I get something right.
Okay. Who conquered Babylon?
The Greeks?
Yep, the Greeks.
Yes.
Who
Alexander
conquered
the
the Greeks?
Persia.
Wait, I lied.
Persia.
We got
and
this
Greece.
backwards.
Persia
Yeah,
and Greece.
Okay. Who did that? The Medes and the Persians conquered. Again, this is the known world, known rulers of the world, and God Himself focuses on known world leaders, and He doesn't talk about. Yeah, I won't go there. Okay. So, and what's the last one?
Greek.
And the Greeks conquered the Medes and the Persians. Okay, so John is saying 5 have fallen. Those are the 5 countries that have fallen. Okay? Then what does he say?
What is?
Okay,
We're there
one
right now.
is. So who would be the one that is?
That'd be Rome.
Yeah, because that's during John's day. One is,
And the other has not yet come,
and the other has not yet come.
so he's a question mark.
Okay? But,
Alexander the Great.
no, that's it.
Alexander the Great has to be in there somewhere.
He's
Is that
right
Great?
here.
He's
He's right
Great?
here.
Is he
Wait,
Great?
where was it?
Yes, he was.
I guess so, yeah.
So, now he is talking about, what does he say about the 7th one?
You can only remain for a little while.
And what does he say about this one specifically?
It's necessary for him to be in power for a brief time.
What?
Sí, si cuando venga es necesario que dure breve tiempo.
Stop it.
I was like, that's what it says.
Verse 10 says he must remain for a little
Thank
while.
you. Oh, what about him though? What about him? He has, what, in John's day?
Not yet come.
Okay, he hasn't
I
come
can
yet.
look it up.
okay.
In John's day, you may have said that, but I do not know. Okay, so in John's day, he hasn't come. Okay? So, and when he comes, he's going to be around?
For a short time.
Okay. So then he says, the beast, which was and is not, so he's referring back to, which we didn't get into, what? Look at verse, go back to 13.
The beast that has a fatal wound?
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes. Now he's referring to, so now he's bringing it about to the beast. So who would this 7th world ruler be that has not come yet? Yeah. So that's, and then he's saying, the beast, which was and is not, is an 8th. What does he mean by that?
He was slain and brought back.
Yeah, exactly. So this is a, now he's the 8th.
Resurrected.
Yes, it's a resurrected beast.
Antichrist or beast.
Yes. Okay. Now, I mean, that's what these verses are talking about. We have dissected all of that, and so we can see why Satan has the 7 heads, and tie that then to this right here. How does that 7 heads on Satan tie to this?
So they're saying all those kingdoms where Satan's putting them in there?
They're satanically,
Driven,
yes.
or, yeah.
Yeah. So we see him functioning through world governments to bring about his purposes. And so there's the 7 heads. The 10 horns are tied to what?
Rulers in those kingdoms?
The rulers of those.
The 10 kingdoms?
Yes. Okay, so we see it tied not only, so that is specific to this time frame. This is in the sense that it is, but it's also tying Satan and his involvement in rulers and world history.
So
And then, go ahead.
Satan put up those kingdoms to,
But we see his involvement in
Yeah,
humanity,
He works through it.
in government,
okay.
and how he works through government.
So at this time, the Lord's kingdom is here and 5 kingdoms have fell to him? Is that
Okay.
what John is saying?
No, John is saying, okay, here's history. Here's world history. These are world governments that have ruled the known world in human history. And 5 have fallen. That's the 5. So here, John's in real time when he's writing. 1 is Rome.
It's Rome.
Yes, and then there's 1 that's coming. He's not here yet, he's coming.
And it's the Antichrist.
And it's the Antichrist. And the Antichrist is number 7, but he's also number 8. Because he's slain and comes back. Okay?
So what are the what would be the kingdoms after Rome? I mean,
What is the kingdom after Rome?
us,
The God of heaven.
God of heaven. Well, but then that wouldn't be.
But you can't have anymore because that's when technically there's no Israel, right? So you can't have another kingdom because then there's no Israel, so there's no country to attack until when was it, 1940s?
1948.
So
Okay.
there can't be another kingdom after Rome until the 1940s when Israel was created again, right? Or is that just my brain?
That's, I'm not gonna say no, but that's not the direction that I'm going, and it's not the direction that he's going, and he's bringing up a really important point. What's his point?
What's the next kingdom?
Yeah, why did he say, what's the next kingdom?
Has to be Christ. Earth. I mean,
Where-
has to be usurped by God.
Christ was crucified and then rose from the dead, which brings, I don't know.
Well, that
So
happened
what-
during Rome.
Yeah,
Christ was.
So what makes them a world kingdom? Maybe that's what
They
I'm asking.
all ruled a known world at
The
that
known
time.
world?
If you would look at a map and you would look at the population and where that population existed.
Okay, so
They
Well,
the
all
reason
ruled
there's not
the-
anything after Rome is because, is that when everything else was discovered and there was not a known kingdom that ruled the known
ruled
world
all of
anymore?
it.
So
Because
they
everybody had their own countries and
ruled.
That's a good thought.
They ruled the area that God promised
Promised Israel.
Israel
Maybe that's what you were driving at.
because
They did. Israel, see, that's why,
because
again,
they
remember we
controlled that
talked,
whole area when Israel was supposed to do it and they didn't.
and remember when we talked about prophecy in the Bible? It's about Jesus' first coming, second coming, the nation of Israel, and every nation that affects the nation of Israel. Every one of these nations affected the nation of Israel, and maybe that's what you, in part what you were driving at, okay? I think that fits with part of what you were saying. But what you're getting at is,
What's after Rome?
what's after Rome? What is after Rome?
Islam.
That's a,
Yeah.
Germany.
he's telling us if this is the fourth kingdom, and in this list, he's got a different list for a different reason. He's adding 2 other world kingdoms. But up here, he's telling us there's 4 kingdoms. Over here, he's telling us there's 4 kingdoms, which is these 4 kingdoms. What's after Rome? Where are those 10 toes?
They're after Rome. So
They're-
they are Rome.
There are Rome. What about the 10 horns? They are Rome. That's
Okay,
the
so they're
description
all
of the
contained
beast.
within Rome.
So what's after Rome?
Christ's return. I don't know.
The
That's what I'm asking.
terrifying thing that they couldn't describe.
That's true, but because those 10 toes are on that 4th kingdom, because those 10 horns are on that 4th kingdom, and these,
When you go
Rome
back
is
to
here?
Daniel,
Huh?
when you go back to Daniel, how is the statue destroyed? It's destroyed by a rock being thrown at the toes, and that rock is Jesus.
yes, it is. That is. So
So-
we know that's the
yeah.
second coming, and we know that, okay, so what's after Rome?
Jesus.
The final kingdom.
Yeah, the final kingdom. So what's after Rome?
For world domination would be the,
So what has to happen? Let me ask it a
Jesus
different
coming
way.
back.
Jesus is coming back, but what has to happen?
Are you talking about the Armageddon, the battle?
It does have to happen, but in order for this to be true, in order for this to be true, in order for this,
Rome has to come back?
Um,
Is that what you're getting? Oh.
touche, Rome has to come back.
When I was young, they always said that it would come out of Russia. Is that something
Russia,
that the Roman Empire would be developed out of Russia?
that's
That's a
because
good-
of the bear.
that is a good question,
Yeah,
but there are wars that those armies come from the east, and so you definitely have China involved, Russia involved. That may be where that communication came from, but all you have to do is look at a map
yeah, you have to look at what it was
and
called
see
then.
that these are all growing in size. and also the world population is growing in size, but you would also see that Rome had the largest territory. And
Because they controlled from England basically to
in
below,
Africa,
south of Africa,
yes. So you'd have to
almost
look
to
at
China.
that. And so what God is drawing our attention to is to a map. And to who, that's where these 10 toes, that's where these 10 kings, that's where they're going to have their alliance, is that Roman map. And Rome existed at the time, but Rome has to come back. Otherwise, that's not true, and this is not true.
Now, why does Rome have to come back?
Because he put it on the fourth beast. He didn't describe anything else. He put it on that one. He put it on the fourth beast, and the fourth element of that statue. Okay? He did it there, and he's clear. Another kingdom, a fourth kingdom. And then all of that description is tied to that fourth kingdom.
So
We
they're
never
breaking
saw
down
Rome like that in history.
So they're breaking down Rome into
Exactly, and we
toes.
didn't see Rome like that in history. Rome never took on, it was kind of the east and the west, right?
Spain just accepted the Muslims as citizens,
Did they?
so the Islam has Spain now.
That's
Oh,
interesting.
they've had it before too.
Yeah. But, that's interesting, and we also, again, a lot of people used to look at the European Union, which has, at one point they had 10 nations. Now they have 20 maybe, but somehow in the shaping of world governments, I'm sorry, Elaine, somehow in the shaping of world governments, we're gonna find there's gonna be a point in time in the future where there's 10. It's gonna change, it's gonna go through some more formations, some realigning, some conquering, some wars, but it's gonna change, but there's going to be some sort of 10-nation confederacy that the Antichrist is gonna take over. And you look at a map and look at what Rome had control of, and you'll find the area where this 10-nation confederacy is gonna come out of.
Now, you said that the Daniel's lion, bear, leopard, and iron crushing thing was 3, 4, 5, and 6. Why is it those 4?
Because if we went back to Daniel chapter 2, and we went through all the details of Daniel chapter 7, we would find that the details in there peg these kingdoms. We would also, if we looked at Daniel chapter 8, we would find it's all about that kingdom. We're skipping those details, but if you go back, there's 6 chapters of prophecy in the book of Daniel, and he's going to be highlighting this kingdom, and this kingdom. And he hints at this kingdom coming. And he's also going to describe a person that is part of this kingdom in history who looks like this person. In Daniel chapter 8, he describes, and his name is, and Mercy was talking about him a couple of weeks ago, his name is Antiochus Epiphanes. He comes out of this kingdom. He does so much on a lighter scale of what the Antichrist will do in the future. And so those are all reasons, but the biggest reason we have this list is because they impacted the nation of Israel, and who's in charge when Jesus comes? Rome is governing Israel. And these wars between, so like the Greeks, they divided into 4, because Alexander the Great didn't have any children, so it divided between 4 generals. And so then they started fighting each other. And every time they fought each other, it's the king of the north, the king of the south, which Daniel describes specifically in chapter 11. But every time they fought each other, they're marching through Israel. And so, and they had control of that territory. So again, prophecy is primary to the nation of Israel.
So the point of these is how they impacted Israel.
It is, but they were also worldwide government. And so it's pointing to, there's another future worldwide government that's tied to a revived Roman Empire.
But Jesus comes back before that?
Jesus is the one that stops this madness.
Okay.
It is him that comes 3.5 years.
Okay, so if we see this start to align, we'll know it's close. Is that fair to
We
say?
may or may not see it start to align. But again, people were always watching the
Yeah.
European Union
Yeah.
because of the territory.
Yep.
And the dynamics, and when they got their own military, and they got their own monetary system, and they, people are paying close attention. But when they went past 10, then but they still look at the territory, because that's all of these they had territory, they had land, and every one of them affected Israel. And of course, this one is going to persecute Israel on a scale. So why? Let me ask you this: what was Hitler's aspiration?
To get rid of the Jews.
It was to get rid of the Jews,
Oh,
and he
world
killed
domination.
1/3 of them. Okay,
World
what else?
domination.
World domination. So why could he not dominate the world?
He was a Roman. I don't know.
Yeah, that's really true.
Towards the end of the war, his mind failed him. He made a lot of really ignorant decisions towards the last 2 years of the war.
But Germany used to be the seat of the Holy Roman Empire, though, too. So it is technically part of Rome.
What else? That's what you're.
Well,
Yeah.
if he would have kept his brain straight,
Yeah.
they would have had a chance.
Except for God tells us in human history, if he could, what would be true? If Hitler could have conquered the known world, what would be true?
It would have been weak.
Okay, it would.
He would
Okay,
have been the Antichrist.
he would have had to be the Antichrist
Yeah.
because it's not possible. He said there's 4 kingdoms. These events are going to take place during that 4th kingdom. If he would have been a 5th. And those details, additional details to Rome, is a revived Roman Empire in our future. If Hitler could have done that, then this prophecy would not be true. This prophecy would not be true.
So the revised Roman Empire would have world domination, and that's when the Antichrist is in.
That's during the 7 years.
Yes.
the
Yeah.
First
Yes.
year and a half.
Okay?
So,
Um,
wow. It's gonna be interesting.
Okay, we're going to pick up. We're not going to go into the slain, his head that was slain. No. Oh, Elaine,
Yeah.
can I call on you?
Really?
You know what?
It's your turn now, go ahead.
Come on, Elaine.
So,
Sorry.
I'm just, there's 10, we've got the number 10, and we're not addressing that because there's only 8 in your column there. And that's because the mounting horn comes up and slays, and that makes 11. The mounting horn makes 11, and he kills 3 of them, so that leaves 8. That's the math you were talking about.
Right?
But when does that happen? During the number 6, during Rome's thing?
Look at 7 heads. 7 heads is the big picture of history.
Right.
And the tide, the satanically energized leadership. The 10 horns is a specific time frame that is tied to this, but it's a specific time frame. So that's why they're talked about different. 7 heads are world leaders. And then it doesn't go on to describe this change, but it's described here in chapter 17. The 10 horns are tied to this kingdom. And it is and the same thing as here. 10 toes are tied to the 4th kingdom. 10 toes are tied, or 10 horns are tied to the 4th kingdom. So that's the final phase of world government, is describing that variation, but it is one of the 7 heads. It's the variation, it's more detail about that 7 head.
And
So
that's
it's
the
gonna
rule of
happen
the
like in the
Antichrist.
time of Rome. Is
Say that one more time.
So is it going to occur like during
The second.
the
one.
second Rome?
Yes, and that's why, so this tells us something else. What does it tell us about, okay, there's Rome here, these things haven't happened, Rome has to come back. What does that tell us? Does Rome exist today? We've said.
It's coming.
So what does it tell us about time?
I mean, Italy's there, Rome's there.
Yeah, but what does it tell us?
Well,
What does
that's
it
not
tell
as
us
a
about
world.
It's
time?
future.
It is future. What else does it tell us about time?
It's
To come.
imminent.
if Rome was, and Rome's coming again, and it's gonna have this 10 nation with, and again, it's gonna change, but what does it tell us about Rome, about this time?
No comprende.
It's Jesus' second coming.
Okay, that's cool, yes, there's a gap in time, which is consistent with what Daniel talks about. So Daniel, because he's focused on what nation, so I'm gonna come back to your point, Daniel is focused on what
Babylon.
nation?
Or
Israel.
Israel. It's all focused on Israel. And when he gets to chapter 9, he's going to say, when are these things going to happen for Israel? And it basically is wrapping up world history for the nation of Israel. Okay, so that's Daniel's question in Daniel chapter 9. Well, there's a gap in time. And Daniel chapter 9 also talks about a gap in time. So there was Rome. There is a future Rome, and we're living in that gap of time. And this could not take place until what event? None of this could take place till what event?
So Israel was
Back
on the map.
so from 70 AD till 1948, can't find a map with Israel, it's all Palestine. Don't find Israel on the map. And so that's all, again, part of how all of this is playing out.
We're actually missing what John was revealed to him, and they said, do not speak of this, do not write it down. That's what we're missing.
Well,
That
this
gap.
is, he wrote this down. So,
No, but the gap you're talking about,
oh,
and what takes place.
the time gap has to be between Rome conquering Israel and Rome coming back. That's the time gap. 70 AD, 1948, that's the time. The seven thunders he associates with between the fifth trumpet, sixth trumpet, and the seventh trumpet. That's where those are written about. But we don't know exactly where they are. What?
Oh, I thought Ed was asking about though, because John was revealed some things, and then God told him, "Do not write these down."
Right, and that is what he's talking about.
So that happened.
But it's not this time gap.
That's not the time gap
No,
between Rome and
no,
Rome.
it's not that time gap, but it is sometime during those 7 years. And this is sometime during those 7 years, maybe even before the 7 years start.
But for Rome,
So are you
Number
saying that
8.
the rapture would probably take place before we see Rome built?
It's very possible. We may not. We may see some signs of. We don't know.
So, but
Those are
before
mysteries to us.
Before Rome to come back, Israel has to have the temple rebuilt, right?
Not necessarily. We're not told that, but it will be. They will be in around the same time frame. Yes, we aren't told that, but it could be. Okay, let's go down. If it is the treaty that's this. Yeah, exactly. If it's the treaty that he signs, and a lot of people think him signing that treaty is exactly what lets them build their temple.
So in that 7-year time period, the temple has to be built somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean in Jerusalem, I guess, but somewhere in Jerusalem.
Yep.
And then the Jews will have to start doing their sacrifices in
Yes.
the temple,
Yes.
and then the beast will cut that off, kick him out of the temple, and take up residence and
Yes.
do his worshipfulness inside the temple.
Yes, and we know exactly when he does that. We know.
That's the start of.
Yes, we do know. We do know when he does that because Daniel tells us that there's that 7-year treaty. He is part of it, so Rome has to be in existence at the time of that 7-year treaty. And then he tells us what he does within that treaty. What does he do? He breaks the treaty, and we're told exactly when he breaks the treaty.
3.5 years.
3.5 years. So we
So that's
know
a short
some
time
of this.
frame to build a temple and start worshiping, and all the Jews start worshiping.
Well, how do you know they're not just going to put a tent?
Well, I was gonna
True.
say, yeah.
True,
That's
true,
today.
true.
They did that.
And in
It'd
today-
just be like a tabernacle tent, and then
Yeah.
yes.
But in
Never thought about
today's,
that.
they're going to get one of those printer,
Yeah.
those
3D
house
printer.
printer things.
Yeah, 3D printer just a.
Or Legos or something.
I mean, you don't, but whatever, and they do have all the artifacts already made to go in the temple. They've had those made for years, so that's
That
not
would
an
be a
issue.
field trip.
Where are they storing all
Probably would be
those
a-
artifacts?
That's a good question, and I can't answer it. I'll have to
Crooked.
find out.
Yeah.
Just curiosity.
Yeah, no, I'll have to find out.
But what
I
I'm
don't
saying,
have
still,
good
even if
questions.
it's like it's a short time frame for all that to happen, you know what I
It
mean?
is a short time, I agree, and so it may be something that is totally unassociated with that treaty. We don't know. A lot of people think it's gonna take a peace treaty because of the dynamics of the Muslims and them having their mosque and Dome of the Rock right there.
So it seems that 7 and 8 has to be the last 7 years. It's the way it seems to me when I'm looking at that. Because it says that that questionable one must remain for a little while, and that was a time, and half a time.
So that's the end, that's the,
The 7 and 8
I think
would
that's
be
the-
the last 7 years.
Yeah. 7 years, 3.5 years, something, but
Each
definitely
one
you're
would be-
thinking about that in the right way.
Okay.
And does the 10 make sense and the 7 make sense?
Yeah.
Yes? Okay. Okay, anybody else? You have run over tonight.
You got to
It's a
talk
lot.
about the nitty gritty cool stuff, you know, like when is this gonna happen compared to what's,
I know, we will, maybe, yeah, we have to. Okay, let's go. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for sharing your word, your prophecies with us, and that you give us an opportunity to engage with your logic and your control and the fact that you talk about it ahead of time and you, because of your power, can make things happen. Father, I just pray as we study, and this can seem so impractical at times, just really kind of gaining knowledge. But Father, I just pray that each one of us would be drawn closer to you because of who you are. And that we would see you the way that you are, almighty, all powerful, all knowing. And yet all of those things are true of you, and yet you love us, and you know us, and you want us to know you, and you want us to be like you, and you want us to make a difference in this world, in our relationships, and in wherever we are. Thank you for each person that's here. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.